Well, good morning, climate campers. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to weekly mailbag number 3 down here in Australia, where, as you can see with my friend, spring is in the air. That's right, we have a very strange tradition here where spring starts on the 1st of September. The weather doesn't know it, the sun doesn't know it, and it's still winter out there as far as I can tell, but everyone gets more optimistic and starts thinking that it's hot, and they'll be all down the beach before you know it. Well, I won't be. But we're here to talk climate. We're here to talk climate science this week, and David Karoly joins us to start speaking to you about how the science works. Hope you enjoy that. A lot of compliments for John Barnett, rightfully so. Great job. People have gained a lot from the kinds of insights he's brought to the course. But now we do go on to talk about why it is that scientists think that humans cause climate change. And judging from some of the comments, we acknowledge already that that's a complex thing that David Karoly is very good at breaking down, but nonetheless that does leave some questions to ask. And as a backstop to what David is talking about in the lectures, we have created a thread, Science 101 or Climate Science 101, that we hope you will ask your questions, no matter how simple, no matter how much you might feel embarrassed about them. Remember, we're all colleagues here, and there is no such thing as a dumb question, seriously, and we can help clarify some matters that there may be not time to clarify in lectures, or they're questions that perhaps haven't been thought of. Peer assessments are an important part of the course, and as you know, Peer Assessment 1 has opened up for business. Here it is. I'm not going to go through it now, but just want to highlight that this is about the local community. This is about what's going on in your neck of the woods. Some of the effects of climate change or possible impacts of climate change are not always that obvious. And some people have already posted in the forums questions about whether climate change really is affecting them. And usually there is an answer to that. It's just that the effects aren't immediately obvious. So please do not be discouraged if you feel that there isn't anything you can talk about. There will be. It's a matter of finding out through local means what might be happening. There are various ways to do it. If you're running into difficulties, please post us, and we'll do what we can to help you. There was an example with somebody, for example, in New Jersey in the United States. Obviously, that's a place where the effects, if you are looking for effects, might not be that obvious, apart from the absolute obvious of hurricanes, and there was a recent one there, of course. But there are other things going on, and we were able to help in that particular instance. So don't hesitate to call. So there's our climate science thread as well. Climate Science 101, ask any questions you like. We encourage them, we will help you, and hopefully we can help everybody develop an understanding of the parts of the climate science that are confusing them, as per what's delivered in the lectures. The other related thread that we've got going is a request. It's not part of the assignment, but for the edification of all, we're asking you to take some photos, post them in the threads, talk about your local area. Not quite expected for the assignment, of course, but a very evocative part of the process. And we've already had some very evocative photographs come in, posted from various parts of the world, and this is what I would like to show you for the rest of this mailbag. Talk about it. Let us know what's happening. This is the best way for us to learn how people like you are feeling about the situation out there in the world. Many varying conditions, many varying effects. None of this means that we are saying, as they say, for sure, that what we're experiencing is due to climate change. This is one of the big conundrums that faces humanity about working out exactly what an effect is meant to look like. There's a number of examples here, all of which, if you don't believe in the science of climate change, you can say are perfectly natural, perfectly in keeping with human existence in the environment. Let's work through them, and we can talk about those uncertainties for a moment. Here's our first picture. This is from Glacier National Park in Montana, and thanks to Kathy Reich and actually her husband for his annual trek through this region. Glacier National Park, as the name suggests, is famous for, I believe, about 150 glaciers originally, most of which appear to have now vanished. There's about 25 of them left. This picture is of one that, as you can see, appears to be on its last legs. Older pictures will show that this area was once covered in ice. By about 2030, they say, all of the glaciers in Glacier National Park will have disappeared. Here's a slightly different take on mountainous areas. This is a picture taken by Tessa in the Italian Alps. Thank you for this, Tessa. In this case, it's not so much about snow as rainfall and landslides. This is an example of a fairly minor landslide that occurred in the Italian Alps in her area. Something that is apparently becoming more and more common as rainfall increases in this area at the expense of snow cover. Is it an effect of climate change? Well, climate change science is not in the business of telling you whether one singular event is caused by climate change or not. It's a matter of the frequency of such events and the likelihood of them happening in the future and the intervals of time between them. So from ice to fire, this is also from Kathy on her actual property in Montana. Some bushfire damage, or forest fires as she would call them, that occurred fairly recently. Started, she tells us, by a welder operating on a bridge on a local highway. One spark setting off a conflagration that took out a fair fraction of forest and some infrastructure, as you can see on her property. You can also see the trees in the background are all blackened by the event. Not a particularly major fire, but one in which you can see what can happen if you've got the right weather conditions, just waiting for that spark to occur. Here's another one, more local for me, just across the Bass Strait. This is Hobart in Australia, a very beautiful city, the capital of Tasmania. You can see the Derwent River in the background. You can see the suburbs down the hill. This picture is taken from Mount Wellington, which overlooks the city and actually occasionally has snow on top of it during winter, and even very occasionally during summer. One of the problems, as Keith Robertson points out, is that although bushfires are not frequent, when you get the right conditions blowing down this valley with a I forget if it's a northwesterly or northeasterly wind actually, sorry Keith, but certainly a northerly wind in summer can funnel its way down the forest and cause some major problems, as has happened recently in Tasmania, but famously in 1967 when there were very major bushfires. And the fires themselves can blow right down into the suburbs of Hobart and obviously cause major infrastructure loss, major housing loss, and loss of life. The question is not that bushfires now happen because of climate change, they've always happened, but the question is the frequency and the intensity. So from fire to flood, we've got a couple of pictures here from Peter Rong in Malaysia, who is telling us about experiences there with flooding as a result of monsoonal rains that come into that part of Malaysia. Sometimes the rains are more intense than other times and flooding as a result. One of the features of climate change predictions in Southeast Asia is the idea that formerly regular monsoonal rains of a fairly regular intensity, although of course there were always variations, will result in years where there is little or no rain, but other years where there is an inundation. And where there is an inundation, there will be flooding. This is particularly so in Pakistan, where Nazir Iqbal has submitted some photos that he took in his village in Punjab province in 2011. The word Punjab, or the name Punjab, comes from, as I recall, two words in Persian which mean 5 rivers. In this case, we're talking about the Indus River and its tributaries. And the part of Punjab, which is an old region which straddles Pakistan and India, can be very prone to flooding from these rivers if there is an oversupply of water in any given season. It seems that the water supply annually has become much more uncertain since about the 1970s, and so the monsoonal rains can either be very low, and hence there is dry weather, which is difficult for agriculture, but in other cases there's far too much of it, and this was certainly the case in 2011. On the discussion threads, Nazir has posted a number of other photos, including one that compares the flood of 2011 with the flood of 2014. These floods have become frequent. There is little that can be done by these communities by way of protection in terms of infrastructure. This is one of the aspects of climate change that is a particular concern to many vulnerable communities in the world. In developed countries, the infrastructure can exist and the wealth can exist to prepare for these events, but there's only so much that many communities in the world can do. And you see this in these evocative examples that Nazir has provided. This was a house that families were living in. As you can see, the damage can be quite extensive, and they don't have unlimited facilities to be able to deal with these problems in these areas. There are many more pictures available on the discussion thread. We've had several people contribute. I hope to show some more of them next week. Importantly, we'd like to see your pictures. There are plenty more stories out there, no doubt, that we haven't heard yet, and we would really like to see what's happening in your local community. As I said, you can't pin down one flood, one event, one fire to climate change. That's not the logic here. What the logic is that the frequency and intensity of such events is predicted to change, and when you change the frequency and intensity of events, you change the need for response to those events. So that's it from the mailbag this week. We look forward to your questions online. We look forward to dealing with your problems online. We are very active on the forums at the moment, dealing with whatever comes up, particularly to do with the peer assessment, but also questions around the science are important. We think that it's not just a matter of putting up the lectures and then letting you work it out. We hope people are going to discuss the science online, and we'll be there to guide you through any issues you may have. So for now, from me and my sunny colleague here, we will say goodbye and see you next week.